Hello and welcome back to the Discerning Otaku. It's been about a couple weeks now. I didn't post anything last week. It took some time to myself to play some games out of my growing backlog. I was going to do the same thing this week, but I figured I could take the time to make a video and then get back to it after the fact. So initially, when I was planning on doing manga reviews, I was kind of torn. A lot of manga that I read aren't completed, a lot are just starting out, and I eventually decided, not this video specifically, but in the future on manga review videos, I am going to still review ones that I'm reading that haven't finished because I feel that if I wait too long, a lot of them will get passed over because people are more prone to jumping onto manga when there are only a couple volumes or a handful of chapters than if you wait and then there's like 20 or 30 volumes and it's a lot more difficult for people to get into. So I didn't want to limit myself by doing that. That, however, does not apply to this video as the manga I'm going to review this time is completely finished. So I debated how I wanted to do this video. You know, my video editing skills aren't terribly good. If I do too much of my non-content, I get copyright flagged and the video gets taken down. But I still wanted to talk about this manga because it has become one of my absolute favorite trash reads. And I don't hate Gigguk, but I also kind of hate Gigguk because if it hadn't been about him ranting and raving about this, I never would have checked it out and I would have missed out on the trashy soap opera manga masterpiece that is My Domestic Girlfriend. Now, I mentioned this to Joey the Anime Man when I ran into him in Akihabara, and he told me he ought to punch me in the throat, but I will die on this hill along with Garnt because I truly do think that it is absolutely phenomenal. The artwork that Kei Sasuga does is absolutely just, it's beautifully done. The story is incredibly heartfelt at times. It's incredibly trashy at other times, don't get me wrong. But that's how, when I describe it to people, I describe it as literally a soap opera. If you think about something that's going to happen negative I mean, if you look at soap operas, they're basically just melodramatic slice of lives. That's exactly what this is. Everything within the story, while completely batshit insane, is completely feasible. There's not really anything within it, like the world doesn't explode. You don't have any, you're not transported to another world. Everything within it is a feasible thing that could happen. However, due to the fact that it is kind of overly dramatized, it isn't likely that everything is going to happen to this one guy. So, first things first, before I get carried away on a tangent here, let me go back to my script. Domestic Girlfriend is a manga and anime created by Kei Sasuga, as I mentioned. Gigguk, I should say, has a wonderful video, if you haven't checked it out, where he actually interviews her. And it's just really cool to see him gush about how much he loves this to the actual creator of it. The manga spans 28 volumes, and I'm not joking. I think I read them all in about 2 weeks. I just blazed through them. It's like the popcorn TV show where you're like, I just can't stop, and it was just one volume after another after another after another. The anime has so far released one 12-episode season. I personally have not watched it. I don't really have any interest in it. I imagine, due to how censors and things work, that it's probably fairly edited. The manga itself is moderately ecchi. It's not H by any stretch of the imagination, but it can get a little risque. So I imagine the anime is going to tone down a lot of that. And I wanted the full experience that the author and creator originally set out to show. And I think in just reading the manga, I truly did get that. Plus, I wanted to finish the story, and that is the problem that you get when you have these anime recreations of longer running manga series is you don't always get the full story because obviously production costs, timing, animation time, and things like that are not always going to be able to keep up with it. So the story basis is about high school student Natsuyo Fuji. It is revealed immediately that he is in love with his teacher Hina Tachibana. Who has always been supportive of his wanting to be a writer, and so being kind of an introverted kid, he's kind of gotten this unrequited crush on her, which kind of sounds a little sketchy. I will say for the story, she's only a couple years older than him. I believe he is 17 or 18 within this, and I think she's 20. Yes, it is problematic, but in the terms of the story, less problematic as it goes on, but it's still problematic. So I get that, but trashy soap opera. So as unrequited love can be fickle and painful, because she basically turns him down, like, we can't do this. I'm your teacher, you're my student. No, no, no. He ends up going to a mixer. While he's at this mixer, he meets a shy, abrasive girl named Rui, and he goes home with her, and they hook up. This is where it really gets interesting. So, he is the son of a single father. His mother has passed away. And so after he goes and has this hookup mixer, he's not feeling any better. He doesn't know where he stands because they're not in a relationship. It was nothing other than she wanted to try having sex, and he was very lonely because of his unrequited crush. So he goes home and he starts talking to his father, where his father lets him know that he has remarried. And the woman that he has been married to has two daughters. Those daughters are Hina Tachibana and Rui Tachibana. Yes, that Rui. It's a chef's kiss of just soap opera nonsense that sets this up as just pure insanity. We have an amazing cast of tertiary characters such as Momo Kashiwabara. I love Momo. Momo's amazing. Um, Without spoiling anything, I don't agree with who he ends up with at the end of the manga. I don't, so I can't tell you who Best Girl is, because my opinion of Best Girl will absolutely just tell you who he ends up with. The back and forth of his affection between the two girls is done in a very interesting way. The drama that goes on between himself, the sisters, the tertiary characters, the frolics, and the things are all done in a very believable way. It's all done in a very humanizing way, and it deals with a lot of touchy subjects. We have talks of, well, not even so much talks. There are stabbings. There's attempted murder. There's cheating. There's just aggression in general. You deal with depression. You deal with love. You deal with loss. There are a lot of things that this manga actually does delve into, outside of just how trashy it is. It's like Degrassi on 50. It's something that should not have captured my attention as much as it did. But like I said, I read all 28 volumes. That's thousands upon thousands of pages in a very short time span. They got to the point where I think I was reading 4 or 5 volumes a day. I was just tearing through them. And the entire time I felt that it was time well spent. It's like watching a car crash painted by Van Gogh. It's it is truly just utter nonsense from beginning to end. Everything that can happen to this guy happens to him. You, at certain times, want to punch him in his face for being an indecisive piece of crap. And at other times, you truly feel for him and the girls because they're going through things that you just don't want people to go through. And through it all, the insanity ratchets up at the end of it. And without having any spoilers, I think it was Giguk actually had a flowchart of the relationship that these individuals go through, and it's absolutely hilarious. You need a flowchart just to figure out what everyone can call each other because it's pure and utter nonsense. And I enjoyed every second of it. And if anything that I've said to you has made you go, this sounds crazy, do yourself a favor and check it out. Like I said, the artwork is extremely well done. She's a very detailed mangaka, and just that alone is extremely well done. The writing is very good. The translation's great. I've run into nearly no issues with it whatsoever. There are some obviously odd choices. Obviously, the story is strange. But I think that's what makes it so endearing, because for every insane plot point, for every crazy thing that happens, there are some truly touching moments, some things that happen, some things that happen with loss and depression and anxiety and things like that. That at least somebody who suffers from anxiety and depression, I sat and took a look at it, and a lot of things really kind of clicked with me as somebody who wanted to do something more in the creative field, who doesn't professionally do that. Because obviously the main character, Natsuyo, wants to be a writer, but there are a lot of times where he doesn't have the motivation or the creativity that he thinks is worthy of doing these things. And so he just kind of lets himself fall into a void. And I myself, and I know a lot of other people, have been in those places, in those dark places. And I think the story kind of shines when it delves into those topics a little bit. And it's a little bit of catharsis to see another fictional character going through some things that I feel, and watching them actually pull themselves out of it. It's a little bit motivation for me to try and get up and do something and not just be down and out. Obviously, I wanted to play games in my backlog last week. That is true. But I've also been dealing with, seasonal depression on top of my regular depression. Depression squared. So it's one of those things where when you find something that helps motivate you a little bit, to help pull you out of those dark points, that's something that is truly wonderful. And yeah, it might be framed around a super weird sister dating soap opera manga, but when it's there, it's there. And more props to Kei Sasuga for being able to take a trashy soap opera manga and put enough heart in it to make it something that I felt warranted kind of a video, my first manga review video, that I truly felt warranted more people seeing it for not even just what it is, but also that it contains some things that are deeper than the initial story point. Contains some good enough writing that warrants it being seen something more than just trashy smut. And I think Domestic Girlfriend definitely warrants that second, or third look. Or if you've never taken the opportunity to read it, something that, give it a chance. I'm not saying give the anime a chance. I've not watched the anime. I have no horse in that race. but give the manga a chance. Read a few chapters. See see if it sticks out to you as much as it did to me. Because I honestly finished reading it last year, December of last year. I remember it was over Christmas. I still think about it fairly regularly. There are still certain points on it that pop into my head from time to time where I sit there and go, I'm glad I read that. I've read over 400 manga series. My chapter count on Mal is nuts. A lot of them don't really stand out to me. There are certain ones that do, and I'll obviously go and talk about some of them. Citrus being another melodramatic. Oh, the Citrus video is going to be painful, but this is definitely one that when I decided I wanted to do a manga review, this is the first one I wanted to talk about. I have a friend, an Australian friend. He's not in Japan right now. Him and his fiance are going on a cruise, but he was talking to his fiance. She's Japanese, and she was asking, well, what sort of manga does he like? And I said, tell her my favorite's Domestic Girlfriend. The message back from him, he goes, she loves Domestic Girlfriend. I said, there are people out there that adore this series, that truly understand that it's not just trashy smut, that there's a lot of heart to it. And that was, I think, the main want for this long rant, is to get people to give this one a try. I truly do think you'll enjoy it, hopefully as much as I did. If not, I completely understand. But with that said, I don't have anything else to say about this one. And I'm going to go ahead and end this video today, as I always do. Watch more anime, read more manga. Have a good one.